welcome to another episode of Read Brave, a comics podcast from the Graphomania Podcast Network. I am Vinton Bain.
I'm Cory Casto.
I'm Scout Casto.
So there are these two elephants that were taking a bath together. One elephant looks at the other and says, "Do you smell something funny?" And the second elephant says, "No soap, radio." That's my favorite joke.
What's it mean?
It means nothing. That's the joke.
Let me repeat the punchline again in case you didn't hear it.
I think we got it.
I'll say it slowly. No soap, radio.
I see.
No soap, radio.
I think it's an anti-joke.
I read some comics this week.
Yeah.
That's good. Let's talk about those. Don't tell any more jokes.
I read a comic called No Soap Radio.
I don't know.
That's not a thing.
It is a thing. Okay, so I read some comics this week. I read Old Man Logan and the latest issue of Old Man Logan and the latest issue of All New Wolverine.
Yeah.
And I thought it was really peculiar that Phoenix shows up in both of them.
Huh. I have read neither of those because I'm a little behind on my comics. I haven't been keeping up with Old Man Logan, but I usually keep up with All New Wolverine.
Old Man Logan was interesting because it's kind of taking this like Moon Knight bent where he's not sure what reality he's in, whether he's in space or if he's in like the Old Man Logan world or whatever, the Hulk villain world. Yeah.
Brian was telling me about the crazy alien nature to the recent Old Man Logan comics, and I saw that newer cover and really wanted to read it, but I haven't gotten caught up on that yet.
It's pretty interesting and I don't know. I feel like that Old Man Logan's just been all over the place for since this post Secret Wars series has started.
Yeah.
But it's interesting. I mean, it's enough to keep me on board, but they've just done a lot in a short amount of time, I feel like.
Right.
I don't have anything to add because I'm very behind on Old Man Logan. You both looked at me expectantly and I was like, I have nothing to say.
Another comic that I read this week that I thought was interesting was Death Be Damned. Did either one of you read that?
No.
I started it, and I'll be honest with you, I stopped about halfway through. It felt maybe a little bit like they went, Westworld was popular, let's try to do something similar. And it was, this is rare for me to say, but it was a little too violent for no reason's sake, I felt like. So it wasn't something that, especially from Boom Comics, it wasn't something that I was expecting.
Yeah.
Maybe it just felt, I don't think it was for me, but I'm glad you enjoyed it.
Well, I have nothing to say about that now.
No, I mean, we're allowed to enjoy different things. And
yeah, no, you're right.
Yeah.
I thought it was interesting. It's written by the creators of the Thrilling Adventure Hour podcast.
Oh, yeah, I really like them.
And Ben
you should just cut out what I said then.
Ben Acker and Ben Blacker, which I thought were really, I don't know. I felt like that maybe that was like two sides to the same person. Like that would be really funny to me if I came up with like two different names that were like very similar, but I guess that's just my personal take on humor. Anyway,
we've already seen your personal take on humor at the beginning of the podcast.
Okay, so but anyway, it's set in the West, and this woman is after a group of outlaws because they've killed her family, and she goes to kill them, and they kill her first and send her to the Undertaker, and the Undertaker is trying to use this Native American shamanism kind of rituals to raise people from the dead, and he's done it multiple times. We see him in the comic do it unsuccessfully with a different person, but it does work with this woman, and she comes back from the dead but doesn't believe that she's died. And so I thought it was kind of an interesting concept, and it wasn't my favorite comic I read this week, but I definitely thought it was something interesting. And it was an issue number 1. So,
Yeah.
you know, I was willing to give it a shot at least.
Yeah.
Probably my favorite thing I read, though, this week was The Return of Paper Girls.
Oh, yeah.
Did either one of you read that one?
I didn't either.
Well, that's good, though, because we have a habit of all reading the same thing every week.
This is true.
And on the one hand, you know, it's nice that we can all talk about these titles and get different viewpoints, but I think it's kind of interesting when we don't read the same things.
I did pick up volume 2 of that graphic novel, so I can get caught up at least on the stuff from before the break, because I've only read volume 1 still.
Oh, no.
Gotcha.
Well, this takes, I feel like that you really need to know what's happened to be excited or fully grasp what happens in this issue, but it's a whole new take on what's happened before.
A whole new
world. Don't you dare close your eyes.
You won't be able to see the comic if you do. It's not auditory.
So that's basically what I have to say about the comics that I've read this week.
You brought up Old Man Logan, and it reminded me of the Super Bowl spot that we saw for Logan. Did you guys catch that?
I didn't.
It was a short teaser with all the footage that we've seen already, but it had Amazing Grace being sung over it in this like echoey old school style. And I really liked it. And it actually almost brought me to tears, because when they said "Wretch Like Me," they repeated it as Laura Kinney reached for Logan's hand.
Oh.
And it was like the most heart-wrenching moment at
gosh.
the very end. I was like, you guys, you can't be doing this to people.
So rude.
What about, how do you feel about Stephen Merchant as Caliban?
I don't know. I have no opinion. I guess.
Have you seen like the pictures of him?
I haven't seen the pictures. I heard that it was a thing, but
He looks awesome.
Yeah, he
Yeah.
does.
I should.
And
look at
I
those
love
pictures.
Stephen Merchant, so I believe.
I feel like this is important enough for you to see right now. So we're going to Google this live.
Live on air.
We'll do it live.
We'll do it live. We'll do it live. But while he's looking that up, did you see the? I know this isn't comic related, but did you see the Super Bowl spot for Stranger Things season 2?
Yes.
That was awesome.
Pretty exciting. What, Corey? Well, I don't. Do any of your employees listen to this podcast? Because Corey was like, I'm going to have to call in on Halloween.
Yeah. Well, no, like
He'll take an official day off.
I'm
guys.
taking
It'll
a
be
day off
fine.
on November 1st so that I can.
Watch them all.
Yes. There's Caliban.
Oh, okay, yeah, I saw that in the teaser from. They showed it,
Yeah.
and I wasn't sure what that was about. I didn't think about it, but yeah,
He looks
All
pretty
right.
awesome.
that's exciting.
Yeah. They Marvel released a tiny little thing about Infinity Wars
Yeah, I saw
that didn't really
today.
show much, but
No,
I mean,
but it got behind the scenes. They were hanging out and
Right.
talking about it. And,
yeah,
I was really excited about it. And then I saw some interesting commentary on Twitter, which was the fact that they never mentioned the comics in that. And some of the creators were talking about how they were obviously poking fun and saying that now there's such thing as young Earth Marvel creationists. who
Yeah.
think that the Marvel universe began with the movies.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's only 10 years old, guys.
Well, I mean, I think it's fairly obvious that you have to be able to separate the comics from the MCU.
Right.
Like they're never going to
At-
follow things.
At this point, they've built a franchise that they
Right.
can divorce themselves from the comics and say, hey, everyone knows
Yeah.
these movies now.
I feel that way frequently about books and movies, that you have to, and I've said it about specifically Harry Potter, but like that you have to view them as two separate things that are just related. You can
Right.
enjoy them both equally for different reasons and not be that purist that's like, well, I won't watch them because they cut this out or they changed this. Well, they're two separate things done by different people.
Right.
Yeah.
I was glad to see, and I don't know if this was just a cover or not, but they had like a big omnibus sitting there with tabs all through it, and it looked like it was the Infinity Gauntlet storyline. And
Yeah.
so it looks like, even though they didn't mention it, they show that they were taking notes from the comics. And I
Yeah.
was excited about that, because I hope they never divorce it that far from it to say, we don't even need to reference it anymore. It's its own thing, because that would be a bridge too far for me.
Yeah.
Well, as long as we're on the entertainment television movie rabbit
We
trail,
kind of took a turn there. Sorry.
um, Ed Brubaker announced this week that he is developing a television show for Amazon with the director of Drive, Nicholas Winding Refn. He also is a director of Bronson, which is probably one of the best movies made in the last 20 years or something.
It's so great that Tom Hardy, did he win anything for that? Because he should have won everything for that movie.
I know that most people
got a Grammy
have
for
no
that.
idea that movie exists, and they should.
It's such a good movie. Yeah, it's crazy. So that was Corey's. Corey was so excited about this happening.
Yeah.
Ed Brubaker, and
it's like, well, like, you know, one of my favorite things, favorite kind of comics to read are crime noir, crime drama comics. And so it's like the pairing of like the best in crime drama comics with the best in crime drama directing.
Yeah.
And apparently, like, they both are writing all of the episodes, and Nicholas Winding Refn is directing them all.
Where did you say they're developing it for?
Amazon.
Okay.
And it's going to be
so they'll be allowed to do whatever they want.
Right. And it is going to be a crime drama.
Awesome.
And then also he announced that Kelly Sue DeConnick is writing a television show for NBC.
Oh, and I didn't see that.
I saw
exciting.
that, yeah.
And then there's a Transformers television show that has something to do with Warren Ellis also. So
you lost me at Transformers, gained me back a little bit at Warren Ellis.
Just a tiny bit, just a little bit. Is Michael Bay involved? That's what we need to know.
I don't know.
I don't know. Let's listen. Whoa, whoa, whoa. Yeah, I think he is. I think he's there.
I think so.
I hear him coming.
Poor guy.
Well, since we're already talking about that type of news, did you see the cast photos released for the casting of Runaways, the Hulu series?
I haven't.
They look pretty spot on. I'm pretty excited. I didn't go in and look at who all these actors were, but apparently most of them have done pretty good things before. I was hearing from people. I need to go in and see who they all are. Yeah. But Spike from Buffy is cast in the show.
Nice.
So that's exciting. I like that guy.
I do too.
Although Buffy's really all I've ever really seen James Morrison in.
That's all you need, though.
I don't know if I've really seen him in much of anything else.
I don't think I have either, but that doesn't matter.
It doesn't. Not at all. So, putting this comic train back on the rails, Scout, what did you read?
Well, you both made recommendations to me last week, and doggone it, I went and read them.
Yay!
So I did get caught up on Punisher, Becky Cloonan's run.
What did you think?
Well,
I didn't. I'm sorry.
It's okay. You're forgiven. I do think she does a good job. Corey, you made a good point when I mentioned that it shows the everyday man human side of Frank, but I felt like I wanted more of that. It showed little glimpses, but I felt like specifically issues 1 through 7 was action, 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 like kill, kill, kill. And you pointed out that maybe there was a little extra pressure with her being a woman to not lay those things to the side and kind of, but as always, like I want action in a Punisher comic, but I also, I felt like there could have been more story there, more groundwork laid. I guess maybe they were just assuming everyone knew everything about him already and whatnot. But I agreed with you that issue 8 was my favorite by far. So it's definitely absolutely worth reading to get issue 8 without a doubt. So
yeah.
And then I did read Invincible Iron Man 1 through 3, which I did love. Yeah? You were right. It's awesome.
Called it.
Yes, you did call it. I love the idea of this young genius woman taking over for Iron Man. And I loved the moment where she and Pepper Potts met. So much of it was so great. So, what else?
If I can just
interject.
Kanye for you for a minute.
Okay.
I read on the note of recommendations, I read half of Unstoppable Wasp, and I was really not sure that I would like it at all. And that's why I had not bought it or read it, because I just felt like there was already enough meet cute. comics, you know, but like halfway in, I'm sold. I'm hooked. It was good.
Good.
Yeah.
I really like it.
And that was something that I read, which Cory asked me on the way here, what was your favorite thing you read? And I think issue 2 of Unstoppable Wasp was my favorite. I'm completely all in to this comic all the way.
Yeah.
I want to know where I can get my girl shirt, my Genius in Action Research Lab shirt, because I'll wear it every day. And I love the moment when she's talking about, Iron Man and Hulk finding all these geniuses and says, but what if they're just finding younger versions of themselves?
Right.
What if they're overlooking the girls, which they are.
Yeah.
They are. So in the back too, one of my favorite things was in the back where they're interviewing real women scientists.
Yes,
which is
really
so
cool.
wonderful. I want them to do that every issue,
Yeah.
please.
And I really like in that issue that you think the first person she's going to go to is Moon Girl.
Right.
But then she like diverts it and goes to just a random girl.
Just
that's not
some
in any of
random
the
kid.
comics.
Yeah.
And she just happens to be a genius as well, showing that, oh yeah, I can find a genius right down the street, a genius
Yes.
young girl. I
Yes.
don't know why this was so hard for everyone else to find.
Exactly.
And then of course you do get the Moon Girl cameo in there, and I hope that there's a lot more of that. And I really
do
like
too.
this idea that these younger genius girls, because now we have a few of them, Ryrie, Moon Girl, and the Unstoppable Wasp. I hope there's some team ups there and they do some cool things.
Yeah, I feel like they have to eventually at some point bring those three together and do something awesome with them. Yeah, so the idea of young genius girls taking over and taking this into their own hands and making it happen is so wonderful. Similar to, Tough Ladies, Motor Crush #3. Did either one of you read it?
I read that one.
I
Yeah.
haven't yet. I've read the first two. The third one's on my to-read list.
I really liked it a lot. I'm interested to know who the mystery writer who pops up at the end to give her more of the crush, get a little more backstory into her, I feel like.
Mm-hmm.
And I think it's pronounced Calax. They call him Cal for short, but
Mm-hmm.
Cal Gothard,
Oh, yeah.
the awesome dude with the giant beard. Like, can you have comic crushes? Because I'm kind of in love with him. So
The answer's yes.
yes. Okay. Well, he helps her out, and she's like, thank you for helping me. And he's like, I just want to win the race, but I think he's a good guy deep down, I believe. Shade the Changing Girl #5 and Hawkeye #3. I feel like both of those were kind of fillers. I was thinking too that it's interesting that I feel like everyone expects every issue of every comic to be amazing, right? But when you read a novel or watch a TV show or a movie, there's always going to be lulls where they need to fill in more story.
Definitely.
But it's kind of a disservice to comic writers to expect every issue to be a 5-star issue.
Yeah.
They got to have time to fill in a little more. Otherwise, you've got that problem I was talking about where it's just, you don't have any story there.
Yeah.
If it's all punching and shooting, you're not going to get me very far. So,
And I feel like one of the problems that comics has is that an issue is not like equal to a 30-minute TV series.
right.
It's more equal to like the 10-minute Office things that they used to do, or the 10-minute mini series things that like cartoons do sometimes.
Yeah.
Because you don't have that much. I mean, you only have like 15 pages
Yeah.
or so between ads to fit in what you're doing. It's not a lot to get that story in. So you're going to have, here's an issue of action. Here's an issue with some more story and moving the narrative forward. And I felt like Hawkeye was really good even in that.
It was
like,
good,
He did a
yeah.
really good job there. Shade was a bit of a lull for me.
Yeah.
But it ended in a fantastic place. And I'm excited to see where it ended with definitely a gripping hook to pull me back into the next issue. I mean, I still gave Hawkeye 5 stars for sure, even though there was a lot of narrative growing in there.
Yeah.
Just some cool stuff happening, and you got a lot more information. And there were some really funny moments with her climbing around the house and everything.
There were some great moments, and she is doing a wonderful job of moving the story along, even though this one felt a tiny bit slower than the others.
Yeah.
It was still a great issue. I
Right.
loved it. Totally Awesome Hulk #16. They continued the story from 15 that I gushed about so much in the last episode.
Still need to get to that.
Yeah, so wonderful. And they help people, and someone asks them, "Oh, you're the Avengers," and they're like, "No, we're not the Avengers." "Oh, well, you're the Champions," and Kamala's like, "No, that's just me and Hulk are in the Champions," and they're like, "What do we call you guys?" And they go, "The kick-ass heroes who just happen to be Asian American, but today will be the protectors." Yes.
That's nice. I like
Yeah.
that.
So those, even, I mean, for anyone who hasn't read Totally Awesome Hulk, even if you just read 15 through when they finish that story arc,
Yeah,
it's definitely worth it. Yeah. So Vinton, what about you? There's some other things I read too, but those are the things that stood out most for me.
I didn't read maybe as much as I usually do. Still read quite a bit, I guess. Mostly Marvel stuff. I read the new Moon Girl and Devil Dinosaur, and that was awesome because even there they had Ryrie show up and team up with Moon Girl, and I just love the way that they connected and the way that Ryrie started talking down to Moon Girl in it, and then realized, oh, everyone always talks down to you.
Yeah.
And so she's like, I shouldn't do that. I'm better than this. And they joined that friendship there. I was really confused though on when this comic was supposed to take place, because we have Inhumans versus X-Men going on, and it seems that nobody's answering Lunella's calls for help because that's going on and because all the Inhumans are busy with that. But they keep talking, at least they talked about one or two places that's Halloween. So that seems like this is like a flashback to something. So I was like, what are you guys, where is this supposed to be? I know it's comics, and I know we can't always tie those things together nice and neatly, but I feel like you could try to let me know what's happening and when it's supposed to be happening. Also, the bad guy is apparently going to be Doctor Doom, but I feel like something is off there too, because Doctor Doom's not a bad guy anymore in the comics, which I'll get to when I talk about my next comic that I read. But so I feel like something's going on there, and maybe they'll get to it, but at the moment they just left me kind of confused. The next comic I read was, as I mentioned, Infamous Iron Man, which follows Doctor Doom, and this actually might be my favorite comic that I read in the past couple of weeks. If you had told me last year even that I would be reading a comic about Doctor Doom, where he was the titular character and where he was a good guy, I would not believe you at all, because I've never really, I mean, I like Doctor Doom, but he is just what he is, and there's no like character growth there for the most part. He's just always the same and has been since the 70s or so. And so I wasn't thinking that I could get really into a book that he was doing, but the opening of this issue was so fantastic. He sneaks into a shield base helicarrier, and everyone freaks out, and he's like, if I wanted to hurt any of you, I would. I mean, I'm not here to do that. I just want to talk. And he tells Mary Hill, he's like, hey, I'm not a problem of yours anymore. And she's like, well, you're still on the rest. And he's like, that's funny. I just wanted to let you know I'm not going to be a problem. And he goes back to Latveria and sees some of the chaos that has happened there since he left and stopped being the ruler over it, and how the military's kind of taken over and done some shady things. And he basically puts an end to it and says, listen, I left you in charge to keep this place running and keep it smooth. What you're doing is not okay, and I will end you if you don't fix it. And then he goes to talk to Ben Grimm, the Thing, who's in his castle, and finds what we saw at the end of the last issue, Ben Grimm being attacked by his mother. Dr. Doom's mother, that is. So some interesting place to leave off there. The art in this book's really good. I really like just the way they've done the panels and the way they're structuring these stories. It's really cool. Lots of awesome moments. So I definitely recommend that one. Still keeping up with Inhumans versus X-Men, but still behind on it. But I read issue 2, and that's still going strong. Nothing really to say there other than, hey, I'm enjoying an event, which is kind of rare.
Especially with all the hate you had for Inhumans not too long ago.
Yeah. I just don't like them replacing the X-Men, because they're so close to the X-Men already. And I don't like this idea that, oh, people are perfectly fine with the Inhumans, but we hate the X-Men. Everyone hates mutants. Like, they're so close to being the same thing. I don't understand.
Yeah, they are.
This seems like a really out of, like, yeah, I think it's like metagaming, Marvel. You can't do this. Come up with a good reason in story, not just because you don't have the movie rights. I finished Young Terrorists, which I wasn't too sure about last podcast. I'm still not too sure about it. That's my finishing thought on it. Slam number 3 was good. You had mentioned reading that in last time, and I agreed with you. Yeah, it was mostly good. I like that there was some drama starting and things seem to be kind of hitting the fan a little bit. Nova number 3 was another really great comic, continuing some of that Annihilation stuff. The art in it is really fun, but it's really stylized, and I can understand if other people wouldn't like it, but I really enjoy this wild, cartoony, graffiti style of art. Champions 5. Did either of you read that with Gwenpool showing up?
I did not.
I did. I mean, the only thing I wrote in my notes was they are definitely viewing every issue as a social commentary, which I'm not against.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. My main note on this was it wasn't bad. I did enjoy it for sure. I didn't like that they just straight up replaced Miles Morales with Gwenpool. That Miles Morales just disappeared without reason, and there was Gwenpool, and they never even talked about it.
And
I'm like, what?
Yeah, and I mean, I wasn't sure about Gwenpool in the beginning because I remember saying, "Is this something I want to happen?"
Yeah.
Like I'm still not sure. Aside from the holiday issue with her that we all love so much, they haven't sold me on her yet.
I agree fully. Yeah.
Yeah.
Is Miles Morales gone because he's in Spider-Gwen's universe?
That might be.
But they don't explain that.
But
They don't explain it.
that.
Well, and I
Happens
feel
to
like
be there.
right now there are so many things happening in the Marvel universe, which I didn't mention that I read issue 2 of Monsters Unleashed, but I did. But I think it's weird that that's coming out at the same time as all these other things.
Yeah.
And it's like Monsters Unleashed is like, there are thousands of monsters. We're all going to die. And every team is there fighting. And it's like they're going to bring in every Marvel quote unquote hero before it's over. But they don't mention it in any of the other titles. It's like all these things are crossing over and I don't know who belongs where or what's
it's getting
happening.
a little confusing.
Yeah. There's too much going on.
They need Paste Pot Pete to come destroy all the monsters.
Yes. I also read Ghost Rider, the 3rd issue, and while I have been having a lot of fun with this, it's starting to get a little tiresome because I really like seeing Wolverine and Hulk, and in this issue, Silk shows up, and that's really cool.
Yeah.
But why is Ghost Rider only cameoing in a title that is his own? He's barely in this comic. He's in like 2 pages of the whole comic, and I'm like, what is
That's
happening?
weird.
You can't call this a Ghost Rider comic anymore. I'm taking that title away from you, Marvel.
I've heard other people complain about that as well.
It's just really weird. I don't understand. You brought up Monsters Unleashed. I did read the 2nd issue of that. I'm having a hard time. I give it like a 4-star, but I kind of wanted to give it a 3. I understand we want to show that these monsters are having a big impact everywhere, but that's really all that this issue did and accomplished. Just showing, hey, look, they're fighting monsters. Hey, look, they're fighting monsters over here too. Hey, they're still struggling fighting monsters.
Yeah.
I was like, we need some more story development here. I got nothing in this issue. I think I'm exactly where I was at the end of issue 1.
Well, and I feel like if this kid is creating these monsters with this pencil, when Elsa Bloodstone walks into his room, can she not just tear up all the pictures and destroy the monsters? I don't
guess
know.
we still don't know fully what's going on there.
Yeah.
But I really loved it. I loved watching the heroes fight all these monsters. I loved the beautiful layouts. I loved the snappy dialogue that they had between each other. But the story went nowhere.
Maybe it's like watching a cheesy action movie. Like you don't watch a cheesy action movie expecting some deep commentary on something. Maybe we need to let it be what it is.
Yeah. Then I read Shade, Unstoppable Wasp, Hawkeye, but we talked about those. I read All New X-Men, which I really liked that they finally focused in on young Cyclops and let you see kind of where he's at with everything going on and struggling. And he finally learns the truth about his future current self that died, how he died and what was all behind that. I won't say it just in case people don't know, and I don't want to spoil that, but he learns a lot of truth about that and has to question some things. And I'm really interested to see what decisions he's going to make based off of that, because everything he thought was a lie for a while. So, but yeah, I've been waiting for that moment because we've known that as comic readers for a little while. If we read some of the older stuff that was happening not that long ago, what happened with Cyclops, but he didn't. And he keeps blaming himself for everything his future self did. And now that burden's been lifted from him and he knows who to blame.
Oh,
so I'm really excited to see where they're going to go from that. I also just today read Avengers #4, the Mike Del Mundo. And of course, the art in here is so beautiful still. As long as Mike Del Mundo is on this book, I will get it just to stare at the pictures, even if the dialogue becomes awful. This one was kind of weird. They didn't have, I'm trying to remember now if they had panels at all. I feel like they didn't. It was just like all big page spreads. It was almost storybook style. And the story was interesting, but it felt just like a really, really long intro explaining this character's backstory. And that was all you got. Like nothing happens in this issue except, hey, here's Kang's backstory, kind of all the way back to the past and everything that's ever happened to him leading up to this moment. Where we're going to get next issue. So it was another one of those issues of, hey, here's a big filler moment to explain some things. But unfortunately, I felt here that if it wasn't for the art, this should have been a third of the size explaining these things. And that's what I read past couple weeks. So mostly Marvel things again.
Yeah, I feel like
I can't escape.
I read mostly Marvel things too. Well, it'll happen.
Yeah.
It'll happen.
Eventually, I will get to some Dark Horse, some DC.
Yeah.
Speaking of DC, did either of you see the new NBC TV show Powerless?
I did not.
I watched it with a friend, and it's okay.
There was a lot of buildup.
Yeah.
It's okay.
Well, it has a really good cast. I mean, you have Danny Pudi, Vanessa Hudgens, Ron Funches, and of course Alan Tudyk, which I was mostly excited about. And it's all right. It has a lot of good like jokes in it, but overall, it just wasn't an amazing show or anything. I'll watch another episode, but it was pretty middle of the road for me. A lot of cool references to superhero stuff, but they made up the superheroes so they wouldn't have to actually bring in real superheroes, like when they had superheroes fighting and supervillains destroying the town outside the windows and things like that. But they did name drop Batman and Joker and brought up things like that. So that's cool that they did that, and I think this could have possibilities, and it's funny. If you have nothing else to do, I suggest watching it. If you have better things to do, then probably do those things.
Cory and I watched a few episodes of Santa Clarita Diet on Netflix, which first of all is, I think it's hilarious. But you get to see Nathan Fillion in the first episode. And I just mentioned that because I feel like a lot of people who read comics are at least familiar with him.
Right.
But in one of the episodes, their neighbor next door loves comics, and he goes to a comic book shop. And Cory had a lot of fun pausing to find titles. So
comics, yeah.
So another thing you could watch if you've got nothing else to do, pause and look at the comics on the walls.
We watched the first episode of the new CW show Riverdale.
Oh yeah, I haven't seen this yet.
We've only watched the first episode, so it's hard to judge for me at least so far.
I think I enjoyed it. I mean, in one aspect, it really seemed like a CW show.
Yeah.
But, and they build it as kind of like a Twin Peaks-esque type show. And I felt like it kind of hit the marks. You know, there's a lot of secrets in this small town. And
right. I'm definitely into that idea for sure.
Everything that looks beautiful on the surface is actually like rotten and decaying underneath. And so I would at least give it another few watches, watch a few more episodes. Did you watch Legion?
I didn't. Did it come out yet? I didn't realize it came out.
The first episode
came out this week, and it was amazing.
I gotta hit that.
Actually, I didn't watch it, but I'm really excited to watch it.
I heard that it got about middle of the road reviews, but everyone that actually had watched it was like, more people need to be watching this. Why aren't people watching this? It's fantastic.
Yeah.
So I'm not sure what to think, but from the trailers, I was really into it.
Yeah. And put Aubrey Plaza in anything, and I'm going to watch
exactly.
it.
Exactly. I agree with that for sure.
I love watching Kate Bishop. But we all did go see the Lego Batman movie.
Yes, we absolutely did.
About 10 seconds in, Cory leaned over and said, "This is already the best DC movie ever."
Yeah.
Yeah. I think I probably agree with you there.
Yeah.
I think it might be my favorite Batman movie, even including Michael Keaton Batman.
Really?
Yeah, I mean...
That's a big statement.
That is.
I guess I don't need dark and brooding Batman because I've been inundated with that, and like I want something a little bit ridiculous, you know. And there's one point where he is cooking lobster in a microwave, and it takes forever, and that was probably like my favorite moment of the movie.
Yeah,
it's just so
I really like the moment
ridiculous and so funny.
Yeah, wait, and you're just like, is this what they're doing? Okay. All right. And it was beautiful in that moment. Like the way they did the lighting and everything.
It was.
This is fantastic.
I just thought it was really hilarious to, to make, I like part of like what I think is funny is making people uncomfortable. And so a movie where like you're uncomfortable, not knowing what's going on or what you're supposed to be feeling. Like, that's a really hilarious idea to me.
I think my favorite part was probably when Alfred starts referencing the weird times that Batman has had. He goes decade by decade, or talking about each of the movies that has come out, and he goes all the way back to, and he's like, you had that weird time in the 60s, and then instead of showing anything because before that they were showing like the logos and the famous images from the movies and him as Lego Batman standing in those images, but then they just show the clip from 1960s Batman. It's so fantastic.
Yeah.
Another thing that I really enjoyed, so there's this website, I guess, called Everything is Terrible, where they take clips from VHS tapes and like edit them together. And out of context, all these clips are just like really ridiculous and over the top and just insane. And they're a little bit NSFW, or can be at least. But especially they have like a segment called Clickhole that is, as it sounds, pretty, mature, I guess. But it's just really funny. And like the people that do this have decided to build a pyramid out of Jerry Maguire VHS tapes in the desert.
All right.
And so,
as you do.
Right, like
Sounds
you do.
Reasonable.
Yeah. And so I had the morning of the night that I went to see Lego Batman, I had watched this like short
clip,
I guess, or from a television show that was like about these people and what they were doing and building this Jerry Maguire pyramid. And so like I had been thinking about it and texted my friend like, oh, you should watch this. This is hilarious. Because we had both gone to see them perform live, I guess, show their clips live or whatever. So like I was just thinking like, that's really funny. And then all of a sudden here comes Jerry Maguire on the Lego Batman movie. And so I think I thought it was funnier than everyone else in the theater just because I was thinking about, Jerry Maguire pyramid.
Yeah, I really like that they showed the real footage from the movie and didn't like recreate it in Lego.
Yeah.
There's something like absurd about that.
Yeah. Well, and the Batman was laughing hysterically at it. And like what most people consider the most emotional scene in the movie.
Yeah.
He's cracking up. Yeah.
Yeah, my wife leaned over to me at that moment and said, oh, it's because he doesn't understand relationships and what it's like to have family, so he thinks it's funny when it's not.
But then at the end, they're all laughing at it because it is ridiculous.
Yeah. It's really funny, too.
Yeah. It was a winner, for sure.
Zach Galifianakis did a great job as Joker.
Yeah.
And Conan was the Riddler.
I didn't realize Zach Galifianakis was the Joker. How did I miss that? But yeah, Conan O'Brien was the Riddler.
Yeah.
That was exciting.
And Jenny Slate as Harley Quinn, which I'm convinced that Jenny Slate and I are supposed to be best friends. So that was great for me.
Well, and like Billy D. Williams was Two-Face, and in the original or the 1989 Batman, he played Harvey Dent and was supposed to come back as Two-Face later in like a sequel.
Yeah.
And because Joel Schumacher took over from Tim Burton, he like nixed that, and Billy D. Williams never got to play Two-Face. And so he had been waiting like almost 30 years to play Two-Face and finally was able to in Lego Batman, which is really
awesome.
great.
Yeah, I didn't realize that either. I guess I hadn't really looked too closely, just saw a few news articles about the voices, so I wasn't sure who was doing what exactly. I did catch Jermaine Clement playing Sauron, which was awesome. And then, of course, Eddie Izzard was playing
Voldemort.
I just went blank again.
Which I love that Ray Fiennes was in Lego Batman, but did not voice Voldemort.
Yeah, there was a lot of funny voices there. And all the references, there's so many amazing references. Like when Joker's talking about previous plans he's had, and the guy's like, oh, they've all failed. And he's like, what about that one with the Prince music?
Oh, yeah,
the first Batman movie. He's like, oh, it's not going to be like that.
And Mariah Carey is the mayor. Like, how random is that?
And then Another one of my favorite moments is when Batman tells Robin, we're going to punch people so hard, it's going to show sounds visually.
Yeah.
That part was great.
So fantastic.
Yeah. I loved seeing all the random villains pop up.
Right.
It was like when they showed Eye of Sauron, I started cracking up.
Yeah, and Daleks.
Yeah.
And King Kong and Godzilla.
Yeah, he was like, space robots, ask your nerd friends.
Yeah, British space robots. Ask your nerd friends.
Exactly.
This is so great. I do recommend.
Yeah, it was great. It was definitely a kids movie, nothing inappropriate for kids to see, but I wouldn't classify it as a kids movie because I think it's hilarious for anyone to watch.
Definitely.
Yeah.
Especially if you grew up with any form of Batman, because it references all of them.
Yeah.
Which is like anyone. Yeah, anyone.
At
any point in time, you grew up with Batman.
Yeah.
Right.
Well, I mean, there was the 60s and then...
They even referenced the one that happened before the 60s.
Yeah,
Right,
That old black and white one.
Yeah. I feel like for our age group, though, the 90s, there was so much Batman.
Yeah.
So for people in their like,
30s.
mid-20s to mid to late 30s are definitely going to get all the
For sure.
references. Yeah. I did see that Mariko Tamaki is writing novel versions of Lumberjanes.
That's cool.
That's very cool.
Yes, it's
really
very
exciting.
cool. Which I can't remember when they're going to be released, but they just announced that it is a thing happening. They confirmed same characters, same story, just novel versions.
That's really exciting because I
Yeah.
do know a few people who just don't like the medium of comic books, but I would love to share some stories with them. And I wish there was more of that for the really good stories that I want to share.
Yeah, and it'll be great for kids who maybe love Lumberjanes but aren't super into reading books in novel form. Maybe that will push them to read something.
Yeah.
Yeah. Very exciting.
So who would you get to write the novelization of Saga?
Brian came on.
I feel like that's the only answer. Stephen King.
Not including the fan fiction I've already written. No, not really,
Starring
but I
you.
should.
Starring you and Marco.
Yeah, when they make a movie, please cast
Call me
me
Brian.
as Alana, and I'll still take Diego Luna as Marco. I'll be fine with it. I'm probably too old. I'm not in the appropriate shape or have the right body type, but I'm
For Diego Luna, you'll get
I am
ready.
committed.
So that's going to take us to our segments for this episode. And this episode is a Batman heavy episode. First up, we have Joshua Unruh talking about two of the Robins from the Batman verse on a talk inspired by the Superpowered Movie podcast with friends of the show, John Stone and Elijah Bailey. We're talking about the best Robin, and Joshua Unruh has lots of feelings. So he really wanted to get it recorded out there. And of course, we were proud to give him a spot to talk about it. So here is Joshua Unruh with his discussion on Robins.
Everything changed for Batman, and for the better, when Robin literally burst onto the scene as the sensational character find of 1940. Suddenly, this obvious ripoff of the radio mystery man The Shadow had something that set him apart from both his pulp counterparts and his fellow four-color heroes: the kid sidekick. Over the years, there have been a number of Robins. Some have been more well-received than others, and a few have caused the usual superhero nerd tempest in a teapot controversies. We'll talk about all of them in due time. Well, most of them. Comics history is long and weird, and this list will not be in any way exhaustive. And so, we must begin with Dick Grayson, the first and original Boy Wonder. Or at least, that's how we're going to discuss him. At one retcon, Bruce Wayne wore the Robin costume first, while, as a boy, training with a famous detective. Comics, everybody! Dick would in many ways give us a template for Robin. A boy, or a young man, whose troubling circumstances brought him into the orbit of first one and then the other of Bruce Wayne's alter egos. Dick belonged to the Flying Graysons, a trapeze and daredevil acrobat act with the famed Haley's Circus. Dick overheard Haley refusing to pay protection money to a mobster. That night, during a charity performance attended by Bruce Wayne, Dick's parents paid the ultimate price. Bruce Wayne took the boy in and eventually swore him into his war on crime. Robin's first case saw the capture of the mob boss running the protection racket that stole his parents' lives. From there, Dick became a son, partner, and protege to Bruce, both in and outside the cowl. You're probably most familiar with this version from the 1966 Batman television series. Here, Robin is played by Burt Ward and is characterized as the straight-laced sidekick to the unflappable Batman. He's undeniably childish in a gee-whiz way, and is best known for his "holy catchphrase Batman" style of sayings. In the comics, this Robin often found himself captured and imperiled, creating the "Robin the Boy hostage" meme. Here's where I confess a couple of things. First of all, I think Robin is integral to the Batman mythos. I don't want to hear any of this loner vigilante nonsense. Within a year of his creation, Batman had a son and partner who wore a brightly colored costume and made jokes about the villains they beat up. Robin is where Batman became interesting. Robin is when a Bat family was born, not a Bat army. And Robin is when Batman's most unique trait came into being. Batman, by his very existence, creates other Batmen. So, true confession number 1. Batman without Robin sucks. Real talk. However, as much as I love Robin, and as much as I love Dick Grayson, I actually don't love Dick Grayson as Robin. I like him most as Robin when he's leading the Teen Titans, a team comprised of sidekicks and younger versions of other heroes. But still, that's not really a ringing endorsement. Call it the baggage of Batman 66, call it the fact that most of his time as Robin was written when comics weren't expected to make much sense, but I liked Dick better when he grew up and became Nightwing. And I loved him when he took over as Batman. But we'll talk more about that when we get to his Robin. As great a Robin as Dick Grayson was, his largest contribution was making way for other Robins. Allowing others to fill that role changed everything, just as much as introducing Robin in the first place had. So, true confession number 2. Dick Grayson is nowhere near the best Robin. However, if you want a great story about Dick Grayson as Robin, then I highly recommend Robin Year One, written by Chuck Dixon and Scott Beatty, and drawn by Marcus Martin, Javier Pulido, and Robert Campanella. Other than that, any Best of Batman collection that goes way back in time is bound to have some great Robin stories in it as well. Look especially closely for a story called Robin Dies at Dawn. Now let's move on to nobody's favorite Robin, Jason Todd. He is so never the favorite that once upon a time, the comics readers voted that he die a horrible and violent death. After Dick Grayson became Nightwing and moved to New York to shack up with a gorgeous alien girl, Batman rolled solo for a bit. Then everyone working at DC realized Batman sucks without Robin, and they introduced Jason Todd. He was an almost identical clone to Dick Grayson, right down to the circus acrobat origin story. Except he had strawberry blonde hair. Until he dyed it black. Comics, everybody! Eventually, the Crisis on Infinite Earths happened, and the DC Universe reset, sorta. Then we got a version of Jason Todd that was decidedly different. If the last one bored us all to death, this version made us want him to die. But more on that in a minute. This version of Jason is a street kid, left on his own by a small-time hood who sometimes worked for Two-Face, and a mother who basically died of being poor in Gotham. Batman stumbled on him when the kid, no lie, stole the tires off the Batmobile. This is actually one of the few things about Jason I respect. To quote The Dark Knight, it takes stones to rip off the Batman's buggy. Right from the jump, Batman doesn't see a lot of potential in Jason, and says so. But he does feel like the boy could channel his rage into crime fighting and avoid becoming the kind of problem that Batman punches, because that problem is mugging some nice family on the way home from the movies. Jason is the rebel Robin. He smokes, swears, and argues with his mentor. Since readers love Batman, the kid who got to be Robin constantly arguing and ignoring his mentor didn't come off as particularly rebellious. He mostly came off as shrill and terrible. A story cemented this when Jason murdered a serial rapist who hid behind his father's diplomatic immunity. Jason threw him off a balcony. Yeah. DC used to know which way the wind blew, so they created a story aptly called A Death in the Family that left Jason Todd in a cliffhanger that could result in his untimely demise. The company then set up 2 900 numbers you could call and vote whether Jason lived or died. For the children in the audience, 900 numbers were sort of the internet back in the late 80s. You could call them to vote on stupid comic book stuff, and to find porn, and not much else. True confession number 3. I called to vote that Jason die. I called a lot. And I regret nothing. And then Jason was dead, as God intended. But in 2005, some lackwit decided he needed to come back to life. It was such a stupid idea IRL that they did it stupidly in fiction, too. It happened when Superboy punched the universe. Yes, really. Comics, everybody! Jason returned mad at Batman for stupid reasons and set himself up as a killer vigilante called the Red Hood, named so as to torment both Batman and the Joker. I really don't know much else about this time because I didn't care enough to read much of it. Eventually, he sorta kinda became a hero and now leads a team called the Outlaws. I don't know if that book is any good now, but I do know that when it launched at the New 52, it was hot garbage. Stay away from, radioactive, do not read. So when it comes to great Jason Todd stories, there are like 3. 2 of those have him as Robin. Of those 2, one is about him murdering a dude, and the other is about him getting killed. The final of the triumvirate has him as a villain opposite Dick Grayson as Batman partnered with his new Robin. That thing is amazing. But we'll probably also get into that later when we talk about Dick and his Robin. So I guess if you must read a Jason Todd as Robin story, read the one where he dies. The ending is actually legitimately great, you guys. I hated that character, but he straight up died a hero. This story is called The Death in the Family and is written by Jim Starlin and drawn by Marv Wolfman. So, if you like this look at the first 2 Robins and would like to hear more about the greatest kid sidekick of all time, let me know on Twitter. I'm at Joshua Unruh. If you do, I'll be back next time to talk to you about my Robin, a young man named Timothy Drake. Hope to see you then.
Next up, we have Good Trash Media with the Back to the Movies segment talking about Lego Batman.
Hello, Read Brave listeners. My name is Caleb Masters, and I host your friendly neighborhood movie review podcast, Back to the Movies, over at goodtrashmedia.com. Every week, we take a look at the latest films that hit the theater near you. We cover everything from blockbusters to Oscar-nominated flicks to, you guessed it, comic book movies. And in our latest review, we had a really nice talk about Lego Batman. So I'm going to go ahead and give you kind of a little snippet of what we talked about, kind of a little tease for what you can hear on our full podcast discussion. And of course, wouldn't be a Back to the Movies review without my co-host. Ma'am, introduce yourself.
My name's Alexander Bohannon.
Trench coat.
I thought you were going for Batman there.
Batman will be around.
Yeah, for sure.
Thank you, Alex. I'm really glad that you're joining me this week. Now, of course, if you want to keep up with us here on Back to the Movies and see some of the other films we have reviewed recently, you can head on over to goodtrashmedia.com where you can find a list. We are still kind of on the road to the Oscar season, although we've done most of the Oscar films. But if you want to know our thoughts on all of those big films, you can head on over to goodtrashmedia.com. If you like Batman or Lego Batman and want to hear more about this type of thing, you can also hear us talk about Batman vs. Superman from last year. That almost came out a year ago.
Ugh.
Yeah, I know. Hard to believe. Feels like it's been a part of our miserable reality for a long time now. But I think it's actually a great time for us to just kind of jump into our review. Alex, are you ready to dive right in?
Ready.
Ladies and gentlemen, it's time for us to review Lego Batman.
Yeah, you know what
it must be great to be Batman.
Batman, we love you! Thank you. I'm blushing super hard under the mask.
Batman!
Prego.
Thanks, Batman!
Yeah.
I can only imagine he's going home right now to party the night away, surrounded by friends and lady activewear models.
Hey, computer. I'm home. I'm home. I'm home.
One is the loneliest number that you'll ever do.
Master Bruce, your greatest fear is...
Snakes?
No.
Clowns?
No. It's being a part of a family again.
No, now it's snake clowns because you put that idea in my head.
Sir, you need to take responsibility for your life, and it starts by raising the young orphan you adopted.
I thought I was being sarcastic.
Let's go back to the Lego movie. This is technically a spin-off of the Lego movie.
Yes.
Directed by Phil Lord and Chris Miller. It was a really beloved film that came out, I think that 2014, 2013? 2014, yeah.
14, yes.
Yeah. Great. One of the best animated movies I've ever seen in my life.
Yes. I cried like a baby leaving the theater. And it had a similar wrecking effect that La La Land had for me on the first watch. So, yeah.
Yeah, it was beautiful. I've never been in a theater. I don't think I've ever laughed that hard in a movie. I don't think I'd ever been in a movie theater with kids as excited as they were in that theater. It was just an all-around amazing experience. And, I didn't know if I'd ever be able to quite recapture that film. So lo and behold, we get Lego Batman a couple of years later. 3 years later now. Oh boy, 3 years goes by. And this is a spinoff with the same actor who voiced Batman, Will Arnett. That would be, the Will Arnett of
Arrested Development fame.
Yes, correct. Job, aka Job. One of, if not my favorite character.
Yeah, Gob Bluth.
Yes, Gob Bluth. Yes. So I was really excited, actually. I had no real expectations for this film when it got announced. So I was just like, okay, well, I guess if they're going to make a Lego spinoff, this is the one to go with, right? He was the most popular character in the film, and Batman sells itself. You know what? I wouldn't be surprised if this movie, in fact, makes more money than BVS.
And Suicide Squad put together.
So, the synopsis for Lego Batman, for those of you who are curious, what is the plot of Lego Batman? Where do we take this story? Well, the synopsis from good old IMDb reads, Bruce Wayne must not only deal with criminals of Gotham City, but also the responsibility of raising a boy he adopted. That is a really bad synopsis.
Oh, God, that's... Okay, I'm sorry I made you read that.
That's a terrible... IMDb, pay us, someone to watch it, and then synopsisize it.
Okay, I'm going to go for an literally off-the-cuff synopsis.
Go for it, Alex.
Okay. Set using Lego bricks, Lego Batman follows the story of Lego Batman and his journey to becoming a self-actualized superhero and meeting some of the greatest supervillains in all time.
Accurate. I think that's more accurate than what I just read a second ago. Thank you, Alex. That was great.
You're welcome.
IMDb should pay you.
You're welcome.
Because that was infinitely better than what I just read right there. Yeah, so this film, we'll talk spoilers in a little bit because we don't want to ruin the fun. There are so many Easter eggs.
Yes.
To spoil.
Yes.
So we don't want to spoil those. But
no.
I do want to get kind of off-the-cuff initial reactions. What did we think? What did we like? What didn't we like? Alexandra Bohannon.
Yes.
What did you think of the film?
I love this movie. It was awesome. No, seriously, I want you to go see this movie as soon as possible. If you're feeling tired, run down, and listless after the current events of our 2017 continued garbage fire, you should watch this movie. It is a balm for the soul. Themes of working together and loving each other. A Lego minifigure that's the mayor that looks oddly like Hillary Rodham Clinton. It's very, very soothing to watch this movie. You see the bad guys get their just desserts, but you might be surprised on how the day is saved. I am really delighted by all the voice performances because we all know Will Arnett is our lead Lego Batman, the titular Lego Batman. But you might be surprised as to the rest of the voice cast. Now, I don't want to spoil that for you because part of the fun, at least I had when watching the original Lego movie, was watching the credits to be like, oh, I totally didn't recognize that voice.
So other than Will Arnett, did you know who any of the other voices were going in?
No.
Okay.
Did you?
Yes. I knew the main, because there's so many Easter eggs and surprises that pop up, but I knew who Robin and Alfred and the Joker were.
Yeah. Okay. See, I didn't know any of that, and that was cool.
The Joker in particular would have been shocking had I not known.
Yeah, I had no clue on who the Joker was. I was kind of holding out, because I hadn't seen a preview for it. Well, no, I think I did, but one. But not, it was only one preview.
And they didn't advertise, all the supporting voice cast that much.
Sure.
Either.
Yeah, I was kind of holding out that it might be Mark Hamill. I'm sorry, I spoiled that. It's not Mark Hamill.
kind of hoped that going in initially too when they announced the film.
I was like, guys, you know how we feel about Batman in an animated way.
But then at that point, you really have to cast Batman as Kevin Conroy, and then that kind of is, you know.
I would have, because the thing is like, I feel like if you bring Kevin. Yeah, okay.
Now, they could have brought Kevin Conroy and as, like, the voice of Bruce Wayne's dad for a cameo or something like that. Like
that would have been cute.
That would have been nice.
Yeah, no, now I U-turn on my opinion about having Mark Hamill on, because here's why, and you bring up a good point. I feel like having Mark Hamill, you would definitely need Kevin Conroy, and if you immediately had those two, like, the tone of the movie would have totally changed. Like, it would have been the dark, gritty Batman that we're used to seeing, even though in the I'm dark and gritty for a children's program.
Look at the Joker. Mark Hamill's Joker is all the Jokers, like, because there are a lot of episodes where he is goofy, silly, dumb, like, but then obviously there's some that he's very not that at all.
Right. I feel like the voice performance of the man that voices the Joker, I think that it's valid for what the Joker ends up doing in Lego Batman.
Oh, sure.
I feel like it fits it better than Hamill in a way.
Yeah, I'd agree. A fresh voice, I think, is
yeah.
Yeah, definitely. I loved the voice cast. I guess we'll kind of leave that under the wraps, just for fun, for our listeners who might not know. I'm totally with you. Voice cast was great. I really like the way they use, the Bat family as part of the central theme of the film. Because the Bat family is, and like that's the thing, all of the main story is all based off existing Batman lore, like in DC lore. And they
Suicide Squad, Justice League, like that's all in there.
Oh yeah,
the two like live action franchise members of recent Batman fame are both heavily referenced and talked about in this movie.
Oh yeah, most definitely. And
do those plots better.
Oh, well, they actually...
Well, I mean, not Justice League, because that hasn't happened yet, but BVS.
The plot of this movie is definitely better than either of the other DC films. Of the DC films, yeah. Man of Steel doesn't get out of jail free card. But what I like about it, though, is it uses these existing ideas that have been in the graphic novels and comics for a really long time, weaves them into a really heartfelt family story, though. Something that story and that idea has not traditionally been executed in that manner. It's like, oh, you miss your mom and your dad, so you try to build a family, because you have this deep, dark void of like a lack of family, and the movie does some really fun stuff with that and some really interesting things with that I certainly don't think that any of the other films have.
Right.
So that's
because we get to see, we constantly see, Bruce Wayne as a character, being the perpetual playboy and the perpetual bachelor and the wealthy, the extremely wealthy 1%er, but we never, if we see Bruce Wayne struggle with his issues, he's struggling with being Batman and Bruce Wayne. It's never like, it doesn't ever go as deep as it does with Lego Batman. I'm saying, you've heard it here, Lego Batman innovates with Batman as a character.
Yeah. Oh, definitely. I don't know. I still want to give credit to, like the Nolan films, because I think those are really good. But this is certainly a different reaction to those films that kind of they set the whole tone for all this dark, gritty superhero world that we're living in right now. At least in the DC in the DC cinematic universe. And those films are great. And there's a lot of credit there, because I think they did push the bar on superhero movies, and we got a lot of really great superhero movies, and superhero movies were elevated because of specifically The Dark Knight and Batman Begins. However, unforeseen consequences, we get a lot of really terrible, bad, dark, bleak superhero movies. Lego Batman, you're totally right, though, is super innovative with the Batman lore in a way that I don't think either of us expected, at least.
No, definitely never seen cinematically.
Easter eggs galore. They throw in stuff, jabs or nods or pokes at like every iteration of Batman in pop culture, save for the animated series. No. Actually, no. What? I take that back.
They totally do the animated series
as well. Yeah,
because the characters exclusive to the animated series who then get to be in comic books later. That kind of thing. Oh yeah. Well, of course. Yeah. Well, I thought with Harley Quinn and things like that. Yeah. Yeah. So yeah, it was really cool stuff. Yeah, I'm very, very in love with this movie, and I can't wait to see it again opening weekend in 2 days. Woot!
Now, listeners, if you've enjoyed this little segment, I encourage you to tune into our full Lego Batman movie review over at goodtrashmedia.com. Our full talk includes a lengthy spoilers discussion where we discuss all of our favorite Easter eggs. So if you've liked this segment, make sure to check out our full episode. I do want to remind you we are a podcast on the Good Trash Media Network, so you can look us up at goodtrashmedia.com or on Twitter at good_trash or on Facebook at facebook.com/goodtrashmedia. You can also find us on iTunes. You can head on over there to rate, review, and subscribe there if you really like what you heard here today. Alexandra Bohannon, where can people find you on the internet?
Sure. You can find me at Alex V. Brohannon on Instagram and on Twitter. And you can find me on Letterboxd at Alex V. Books.
You can also find me on Twitter at CMastersTalk or on Instagram and Letterboxd, both at CMasters91. Thanks so much for tuning in today, Read Brave listeners, and until next time.
Vinton, what do you recommend I read this week?
We all recommend Lego Batman, right? Show's over.
Yes,
Go home.
absolutely.
Everything's done. Goodbye, everybody.
Watch Lego Batman. Take your kids, take your mom, take your grandma, take your babysitter.
Take your kids. Take your wife.
Don't
They're
hide them.
entertaining everybody
Yes.
out here tonight.
Take your puppies.
Take your puppies. Yeah.
Sneak them
please.
in. It'll make them happy.
You know, I would enjoy going to see that movie and there being just more puppies around.
Well, there should be puppies everywhere
fantastic.
all the time.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
I would say that my recommendation for this week, aside from Lego Batman, would be Infamous Iron Man, because it's really going to some cool places, and I think it's worth checking out for sure. Corey, what do you recommend?
I recommend that you read some comics this week.
Read some comics, and also more comics, and watch a comic book movie maybe, or a TV show.
I think we talked about this previously, but I don't know if we recommended it, but I'm going to say The Few. I think there's just one issue out so far, but I really enjoyed it a lot.
Nice.
It's one issue that's a great issue. So it's a good time to jump into something new.
Not a lot of text in it. It's mainly relies on the artwork, but the artwork is so beautiful that you don't even care that there's not that much text.
Right.
Yeah, I agree. Well, I've talked a lot of trash on The Walking Dead. And I was annoyed that the last issue still isn't wrapping up the war that was only supposed to be a 6-issue event. But for anyone who only watches the TV show, if you're interested in knowing more about Negan, which I think people should, because I think that the show is still in that time frame where everyone just probably still hates him, I think it would be a good idea to go back and just read a couple of the most recent issues of The Walking Dead to get a little more insight into who he really is. I mean, he's not a hero by any means, but he's a man who was just protecting his people is the bottom line. So this last issue has a really great Rick and Negan moment that I think people need to see. Beyond that, read Unstoppable Wasp, please. Issue 1 and 2, and love it.
The Walking Dead event, is it Monsters Unleashed?
Zombies Unleashed.
Zombies Unleashed. No, I mean, I felt
beginning.
like it was a good time to say that because, you know, the show is coming back. Well, by the time this episode is aired, the new episode would have aired on Sunday.
Yeah.
So I feel like, you know, the show is still obviously demonizing him. I mean, he's the big villain. He's the big bad guy of the moment. So they have to, understandably so. But there's a lot more to him than meets the eye. So
Like a transformer.
Yes.
He's a transformer.
He is
That's
a transformer.
the secret.
No. So, I mean, you know, if you only watch the show, I would recommend you pick up a couple issues of the recent issues and just find out a little more about him.
Secret Civil Whisper War.
Yes.
Wasn't the Image Plus magazine doing a short miniseries
Yeah,
on
and
him too?
that definitely offers some insight, and it will take you 5 minutes to read all of them. So
There you go.
take the time to read a little bit of it, and yeah, he's a great character that I feel like I'm worried that they're not going to be able to portray him the way that he should be on the show, just because I don't know, just because I worry that he won't be able to, but time will tell.
Time will tell.
Correct.
Time after time.
You say, go slow.
Anything else?
I think that's it.
No soap radio.
No soap radio. That's not going to be the name of this episode. I refuse to name the episode that, Corey. So
I just have to say it a few more times.
He's going to come with an anti-joke in every episode now if we don't like.
We got to cut this off. I'm just going to start editing it in backwards so people are even more confused. Just from saying the joke backwards.
Be like, did you hear the word Satan in there?
It's like on Threat Level Midnight whenever she's singing to tell him where the hostages are.
Yeah.
Well, that's not a
I want to
recommendation.
start an
Watch
office
The
podcast, guys.
What about Office comic book?
Is there an Office podcast
let's
yet?
start an Office
I want
comic
to do
book.
that. Yeah. Let's do both at the same time.
Yes, I'm down.
Yeah.
We'll start an Office comic book and then have an after show for ourselves for our own comic book that probably no one's reading.
By the way, this is now the Office segment. Maybe we just need to work an Office segment into each Read Brave.
Oh, yeah.
Episode.
Hope you guys like
I would
this.
They're not related, but
I would say though that everybody I know that reads comics also watches The Office.
Okay, so go on Twitter, guys.
See where this Venn diagram works here.
Yeah, go on Twitter and you can look at either Jim or Pam's Twitter account. Their quote unquote real names, whatever that is, but like there is a girl who did a dance to show her joy and love for The Office. And it's one of the best things I've seen so far this year. So if you're a fan of The Office, you should go check this out and be like, I want her to be my best friend because that's how
amazing.
I felt. So
also, Chili's lifted the ban on Pam.
On Pam. Yes.
They officially lifted
so
the
long.
ban on Pam, now helper.
Yeah. So good news.
And with that, we are going to say goodbye. Remember, you can always get into contact with us at contact@graphocast.com or at graphocast on Twitter. Personally, I'm at Flesh Eater.
I'm at home.
Nothing.
At nothing.
At home.
And I'm at Scoutcasto.
And remember, this and all of Graphomania's podcasts are completely listener supported. If you'd like to give us your support for some extra goodies, check out patreon.com/graphocast. We'll see you in 2 weeks with another full episode of Comic Book Fun.
I am Beyonce always.
This has been a Graphomania production. If you would like to hear more podcasts, go to graphocast.com, graphocast.com. Follow us on Twitter at Graphocast and like the Graphomania page on Facebook for news and updates.